Welcome back to part 2 of this amazing conversation with Dr. Margaret Cochran on breaking those inherited patterns and finally stopping the behaviors we'd swore we'd never pass on. In part 1, we unpacked what those inherited patterns look like in real life, why they stick around, and how compassion and awareness begin to loosen their grip. Today, we're going even deeper into how we can do that when it feels impossible. So stay tuned. Welcome to Fulfillment Therapy. I'm Kendra Nielsen, wife, mom, and licensed therapist. Do you ever feel like you're doing everything right, but you're still exhausted and empty? Did you think life, marriage, and parenting would be simpler and more rewarding? Sometimes you just want to crawl back into bed and lose yourself in screen time and chocolate, rather than face that personal or family stress. You are not alone. This podcast helps you break free of the rat race and build a richer, more meaningful life, flourishing incrementally and realistically, improving your mental health and wellness, and living with deeper purpose beyond the mundane, no matter where you are in life's journey. I know that a lot of parents feel stuck on how to do that. Again, you go back to getting therapy, doing those steps to breathe. But maybe let's talk about avoidance, for example. How do they manage that a little bit better to lean in and fix some of these generational patterns?
Let's go back another generation. Let's say your mom was on the abusive side. Hypercritical is a big one with mothers and daughters. Yeah. And so let's say you have this really hypercritical mom. And one day your kid says, "Why do you let grandma talk to you like that?" And boy, it just hits you right here because you are letting your child watch another person abuse you and you are tolerating it. And you know the rule with children, they don't do what we say, they do what we do. They model our behavior. And that's when you would say, "You know what? Thank you for saying that to me. It was painful, but I was glad to hear that. I'll think about what I'm going to do." And then either you do it yourself or again, you call a professional in to help. Mostly for this one, I'd call a professional in to help. And you need to be able to go back to your mom and say, "I love you, Mom. And I know when you are giving me feedback that you mean it to help me. But if you ever speak that way to me again, I will leave this house. Understand me. I appreciate your intent, but your words were hurt and did not serve me at all. And I love you, and that's why I'm telling you this truth." Now, depending on how toxic mom is, she may need to come see me too. I have sometimes generations of people in my family, but I've seen anger and vituperative spew, nasty words go on for 4, 5, 6 generations. Yeah. And grandma talks about my mom was this and her mom was that. So we're going back, like I said, 5 or 6 generations of angry women who probably were not living very nice lives, were probably not very well treated, and had no resources and no power and all kinds of stuff like that. There were a lot of reasons how it got started, but it's time to stop. It's not going to get you where you want to go. My grandmother, when she married my grandfather, her mother-in-law, my great-grandmother, thought that my grandfather had married beneath him. And they lived on a farm in Indiana. And so when my grandfather moved my grandmother into my great-grandmother's house, my great-grandmother treated her terribly. And one day they had a family meeting about the will. The land was very important. And my great-grandmother said, "I want to make sure that Edith," that was my grandmother, "cannot inherit, no matter what." And my great-grandfather, God bless him, said, "That's enough." And my grandmother got a job. She left the farm. She went off and got her own job. She had her own income, her own money, her own friends, her own freedom. that was the most devastating thing she could have done to my great-grandmother, because now she had all the work to do herself and no one to yell at. I know. So sometimes the most powerful thing you can use, that's a long story to get to a short thing, is boundaries, understanding boundaries. And that's what my grandmother, God love her, got. She got, okay, I'm out of here. If this is what's going to happen, then I'm going to go do something else for myself. So being aware that boundaries actually create intimacy. Having good boundaries with your children is what keeps you close to them. It socializes them. It teaches them to be happy people and to be well liked by others. It's the greatest gift you can give. And many parents get trapped in this permissive cycle where it's, I have to say yes all the time. When you say yes all the time, then it doesn't mean anything anymore. There's no special, there's no joy, there's no excitement, there's no anticipation. Blech, who wants soda like that? Not me. Then you find yourself in a cycle of having to create havoc to get some excitement. So you're actually promoting negative behavior when you do that. If, on the other hand, the kiddo understands no means no, and yes means yes, you have to follow up on your word either way. You say you're going to do something, then you need to do it. If you say, nope, that's enough, it has to mean enough. Now, parents, you brave creatures that you are, understand this. If you say no to your children, they are going to push back. Be prepared. Eat your Cheerios, your oatmeal, or whatever you need to do, but understand they're going to push back. It's their job to test boundaries. They're not being bad. They're saying, so are you really who you say you are? Poke, poke. What do you got in there? What's under the hood, as they say in the car world? They're going to push back, and your job is to just hold the line. And I won't fib, that can be stressful. But if you do it, the rewards are incredible.
I really appreciate you sharing that story. First of all, it helps us conceptualize it a little bit more. Love stories. And it even reminds me of another one too. Just a very simple one, but getting feedback from your kids. I think that's like a great place to start, like you shared. I have 4 kids, and my oldest son was telling me, Mom, you're way too easy on my youngest son. And this has been a conversation before. I'm like, yeah, I think you're right. Like the youngest, I just don't have the bandwidth that I once did. I'm not nailing it all the time. You're absolutely right. And so just getting his feedback and asking him some questions about that. But that has been hard because at first, like, I want to get defensive and explain why and all of these things. But how you talked about thanking your kids for their observations and getting that feedback and then doing something about it. You just shared these stories too about how kids will test those boundaries. And actually, that's one thing that I wrote down as you were talking, like boundaries, underlined it several times. And then you came back to that. I love how you talked about how that really creates an intimacy, even though it doesn't seem like it would. It seems to do the exact opposite. But like in your story, you almost have to develop more of this backbone and also have this humility to be able to do these things that you maybe never saw yourself doing before. But if you want to take your life to that next level and break those generational patterns, then that's what it's going to require.
Absolutely true. And it's also important to recognize that boundaries make intimacy in your romantic relationships as well. Mm-hmm. That's super important. But back to your earlier statement, when a kid comes to you and says, hey, I think you love so-and-so more, or I think you're easier on so-and-so, you say, interesting observation. Tell me more about why you believe that's true. And then just listen. Yeah. Because A, you're going to get a lot of powerful data. And B, you may find out there are also some things that are going on with that kiddo who's talking to you about their own self-esteem, right? And their own sense of power. So understanding that, I think one of those powerful tools that we have is to learn to stop talking.
Absolutely.
Just listen. We spend so much time doing that. So it's really nice when we can sit back and say, okay, tell me about that. Let me hear. One of the things that kids love the most. Now, the older kids will deny it because they deny everything. That's their job. But just to have what I call special time. And when they're little, set a time for half an hour or something. Sit down on the floor with them and say, okay, you're in charge. For this time, you get to pick what we do. Still have to use please and thank you and the usual rules, social rules. But they get to pick the activity. They get to tell you how it's going to go. And you ask them questions like, let's say we're building a fort, okay? So I would say as a parent, okay, so where do you want me to put this? And initially the kid will be, what? You're asking me where to put it? Because we're saying brush your teeth, go to bed, all that. Oh, put it over there. Okay, I'll put it right over there. Do you like it here? Does it look how you thought? And that time will become so precious to them because it is an interaction that is beyond measure. And later down the road, because we always play the long game, don't we? Later down the road, it sets the model for setting up an adult relationship with your parents, which is a big developmental challenge. Because our parents often don't want to do that. They want us to be always familiar to them. And we realize we have to do that for us to be able to move on. There has to come a discussion sometimes where, Mom, I need to figure this out on my own. Or I know you're trying to guide me here, but I really need you to stand back and let me sort through this. And let me come to you with questions. Can we do it that way? And with older children in particular, I strongly advocate a Socratic method. And that means that basically when they come to you and say, I don't know, some outrageous statement or something, you say, really? So what's your plan? Don't fix it for them. Don't do that. Just ask, well, what's your plan? Or here's one that comes up a lot, is I'll ask a kid, especially middle schoolers, this becomes a serious issue for them. If one of your friends came to you and said they were going to kill themselves, what would you do? I'd talk to them until they felt better. And so that's a very loving, kind thing to do. But what if they felt better when they were talking to you, and then later they felt worse again, and they killed themselves? And you didn't tell a grown-up? How would you feel? Never dawned on them that their magical talk wouldn't fix the problem. They're middle schoolers. Give them a break. That's what they know. I couldn't live with myself. So the rule is, when it comes to safety, all bets are off. You don't keep secrets about safety, about boyfriends and girlfriends and Christmas and all that. Yeah, of course you keep secrets. But when it comes to safety, if someone is going to harm themselves or they're being harmed by someone, no matter who that someone is, you go to an adult and you tell, and you keep telling until someone listens.
Yeah, that is very helpful. So what's your plan, and don't fix it for them. Eliciting more of that dialogue. And then even in that, again, I think it keeps going back to that humility, those boundaries, having a backbone, like the different stories that you shared. But allowing your kids to be in charge, I know that's hard for a lot of us. Like, I think about sitting on the ground and playing Legos for 30 minutes. Doesn't sound like the most fun. And you're building that relationship that will last. I was just trying to envision what that would look like with my high schooler if I were to be like, hey, you're in charge for 30 minutes. Do you do it a little differently for those older kids?
Yeah. What? Hey, you're going to make dinner tonight. Yeah. Let's go to the store and we'll pick out what you want. I have to go to Susie's house. You can go to Susie's house after you make dinner. Having them learn about how much stuff costs. Having them follow a recipe. Having them invest in something they created with people they love. And food, of course, is ancient stuff. We've been sitting around fires sharing food since the beginning of us as beings. And women in particular are very powerful networkers. We often sell ourselves short there, but women know a lot about networking. They know a lot about how to come together and help each other and support each other in the things they do. And we often do that and don't pay attention to it. But especially with parenting, it's important that you have support. Come on, let's be honest. No rational person would have a child. They're expensive. They smell. They take up all your time. They're incredibly demanding, psychologically, emotionally, spiritually, every way you can imagine. We have them because of the heart. But even though we've made that wonderful, foolish decision to be parents, we need to have other people around us who are going through it too. I was at the grocery store the other day, and this kiddo, it was a classic 2-year-old meltdown. And the mom was trying everything to be calm, and I could see she was just at the edge, right, just at her breaking point. And I went up to her and introduced myself, and I told her what I did. And I said, "You're being a terrific mom. You really are. You're holding the line. You're being calm. You're holding the container for your little person to just go through their tough time." And she said, "Oh, you think so?" And she just started to cry. God bless her. I was holding her in the grocery store, patting her. It's going to be okay. But the minute, of course, that she started to cry and I was holding her, the kiddo stopped. Because it's a very powerful distraction tool. And you use it all the time with kids. They're about to do something you don't want them to do. You say, "Oh, look over here. What? Oh, I can do that now." So understanding the power of distraction is very important. But in that case, once the kiddos saw their mom cry, their all attention was on mom. And it gave them the bandwidth to do what self-regulation a 2-year-old can do. Because basically we function as their self-regulators when they're little like that. And sometimes when they're older too. For example, let's say you've got a high schooler who is failing Spanish and you suspect it's because they're not studying Spanish, but you give them the benefit of the doubt. You say, "You know what? Prom's coming up. And I want to let you know that if you don't have at least a B in Spanish, you can't go. Now, I'll get you a tutor. I'll do whatever it is you need for help and support. But I know you're capable of doing B work. If they're capable of C work, that's fine too. But whatever you believe the child is capable of." And so they say, "No, I want to do it on my own." Oh, you can. But remember, if you don't do this, this is what the consequence will be. And if you decide you change your mind later when I ask for help, I'll be right there. I'll give you what you need. Prom comes along. They got a D in Spanish. And you say, "Oh, I'm sorry, sweetie. Remember what the deal was. You are a horrible mother, ruining my life. I will be a social pariah. No one will ever talk to me again." And in their little high school life, that is how it feels to them. And you say, "Sweetie, you know what? I'm sorry that you're struggling. But remember, I let you know a long time ago what the rules were going to be. Because I believed in you and I knew that you could do well. I'm sorry you didn't believe in yourself. Next time, I hope you do."
I like that turning it back around to, okay, they can rage all they want, but I hope next time that you'll believe in yourself. And you reinforce this thing like, yeah, I'm going to set a boundary. I'm going to maintain it, and showing them, like you said, even with the toddler, like they are there to test those limits and you're going to uphold them. So much easier said than done. I think about withholding prom and my mama heart hurts, but that's what it requires. Some of those lessons to show them that what you're saying, you mean, and not being that doormat. Love the things you shared though today about like that countdown, about those generational patterns of, like we talked about, avoidance, anger, escapism, but it all seems to go back to those boundaries, having that,
It does.
getting that feedback. So helpful.
By the way, a little dark chocolate doesn't hurt either.
I would second that. I love that. And then also not fixing it for them, but helping them learn. So wonderful things you shared with us today. Do you have any final thoughts, generational patterns that we didn't get to speak to today on this topic that you'd like to leave us with?
Couple of things. One is, whenever you're in a situation with your kids or with anyone else, there are 3 important questions to ask. What's happening to me? How do I feel about it? And who do I want to be in the situation? Now, by asking those 3 questions, you have access to your entire brain. The first is, speaking in rough terms, your left side of your brain, your linear side. What is actually happening? 2, you access your right brain about, what am I feeling right now? Anger, rage, sadness, confusion, whatever. Then number 3 is an integration between the 2. Who do I choose to be? Because you can choose to be a jerk. You can choose to be angry back. There are a lot of things that you can choose to be. Or you can choose to be compassionate. And it really changes, how things go. Let me give you a quick example. I was in a very small town, and I was driving down the street. There was a lady in front of me, and there were 2 parallel parking spaces. So she was in front of me. I was waiting behind her, and she could pick whichever space. I didn't care. I was just going to take the other one. She finally picked one a little further down the street. I parked in the one closest to me. I got out of the car. She came barreling up the street, screaming and yelling like a banshee, calling me all kinds of words I will not repeat on your show, and telling me I'd stolen her parking space. So I'm thinking, what's happening here? Okay, this random woman is screaming at me about stealing her parking space. I have no idea why. How do I feel about it? Confused, rather annoyed because I got things to do, places to go, but also I feel sad for her. What is going on that she would react this way about a parking space? So the person I decided to be was the compassionate one and said, ma'am, I didn't steal your parking space. I just took whichever one you didn't want. I don't know what it is that's hurting you. I'm so sorry. I wish there was something I could do to support you. And she just melted down and started to stop. And she cried, and I was holding her. And I found a space. I hold everybody, right? I found a park bench, sat her down, got her some water. I said, is there somebody I can call for you? Because you can't drive like this. She said, no, I'll be all right. Well, promise me you won't drive until, you feel better. Please talk to somebody about whatever it is that's hurting you. So, okay. So now I could have been angry and screamed back at her. I could have just walked away and ignored her. I could have broken down myself. Why are you yelling at me? I had all kinds of options. The option I chose is to be the empathic person. And another quick story about why. I've worked a lot with people who've had near-death experiences. And the one thing that comes out of all those experiences the same is you get to a point where you hear a voice and the voice says, so what did you do with it? And it's not a critical voice or an angry voice. It's not a male or female voice. It's just a voice. And you see your life like a movie. And you feel everything you felt, and you see everything you did. And you also feel what the other person felt. And it's a very powerful learning experience, as you might guess, which is, I imagine, why the voice does that. But I thought to myself, wow, what's my movie going to look like? The little hairs in the back of my neck went up, and I thought, what's my movie going to look like? I don't want to die and see a bad movie. That does not sound like a good time to me. So when I think about those 3 questions, I always think about my movie. I'm the director and the star and the audience and the producer. I'm all those things in my film. And what do I have control over my film? What's my film going to look like?
Really love those, Dr. Cochran. What's my movie going to look like? That really helps us live this, I guess you could call it this higher law, like greater fulfillment, if we're thinking about those things. And it goes right with those 1, 2, 3. What's happening? How am I feeling? Who do I want to be? Like, that's like a micro way of looking at it. And then that movie scene, even that bigger view that you're looking at. But yeah, just really a beautiful way to slow it down and to live in greater alignment, maybe with our values, what we really want, instead of just rushing through life and then having all of these regrets. And then again, these generational patterns that just continue on. So I think that's a beautiful place to end, and really appreciate you adding those in those stories. I just love stories. So maybe this resonates with people, with listeners as they're listening today. Where can they find you?
drcochran.com.
Okay. And I'll put all those things in the show notes as well. And thank you so much again for coming on the show with us today.
Oh, thank you for having me.
Yeah, of course. This has been such a rich conversation with Dr. Margaret Cochran. If something she shared stirred some hope or even a little discomfort, that's often the first sign that real change is possible for you and your family. If you're ready to take the next step, you can join our email community for those ongoing tools, stories, and encouragement, or you can check out our online courses to improve your mental health and wellness. Check it all out at fulfillmenttherapy.org, or you can find us on social media at Fulfillment Therapy on both Instagram and Facebook. While you're there, send us a message or reach out in any way. We'd love to hear from you. And don't forget, we have new episodes every Monday morning that will help you take your personal and family life to the next level. So we'll see you back here every Monday. Until then. Hey friends, if you enjoyed this episode, a quick 30-second share can help someone else find support and help this podcast grow. Leaving a review on Apple Podcasts boosts visibility and keeps the show alive. Your simple acts make a big difference. I'll see you back here each week for more life-changing episodes.